It takes about 8 hours to drive from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to New York City. And in 2004, my sister was moving from Chicago, Illinois to New York City. And our hometown is in Pittsburgh. So we decided that my dad would go to Chicago, pick up my sister, help her pack up her U-Haul, and drive it to Pittsburgh, where she would pick up some other things, maybe left over from childhood. I would fly into Pittsburgh, meet her there, and then I would accompany her the rest of the way back to New York City. So she got a 15-foot truck from U-Haul. So this was not just a van, it was an actual truck, which I had never driven before. So we meet in Pittsburgh, we load up the truck, and we decide that the plan will be that we'll get up around 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and that will give us about 8 hours or so to drive, hopefully getting into New York, say around maybe 3 or 4 p.m. My sister had scheduled some men with a van who were going to meet us at a storage unit in Brooklyn, and we would seamlessly meet up with them. We would unload the truck and we would be done. So we thought, no problem, totally do this. It'll be fine. Because I'm the older sister and because I feel like it's my duty to, do things first and be protective of my younger sister, who's not really that much younger, I decided to chivalrously offer to drive in the morning. So we get in the truck, we take off, we say goodbye to our parents. Things are totally fine. We're driving along. It's good. We're going through all the neighborhoods we need to get to. We take the exit. We're getting onto the parkway. And it's obviously time to start picking up speed. So I start, trying to floor it a bit, trying to at least get up to 55 miles an hour. And as we're getting up to 55 miles an hour, the truck starts to shake uncontrollably, massively, massively shake. And my hands are barely holding on to the steering wheel, just starting to sway violently. And suddenly the truck actually starts to sway violently. And I really was certain that we were going to flip over. And then this would be the end for both of us. And we're trying to figure out what the hell was happening. But I guess we had packed the truck so badly. And because it had been packed half in Chicago and half in Pittsburgh, it was just a totally kludge job of however we did this packing. So anyway, I'm driving. I'm I have to do this. We have a time constraint. I can't slow down. I'm committed to trying to drive at 55 miles an hour. But as I'm driving, I start to feel the panic well up in me. And I'm oh my God, I don't know that I can actually do this. And I'm physically shaking, both from the steering wheel, which is moving underneath my hands, and also from my own nervousness. So I can't take it anymore. And after about 40 minutes of driving, I'm I have to get off. Oh my God, I have to get off this highway. I can't stand it. So I find the nearest exit, drive off, and of course this is Pennsylvania, so it's very rural, and it's still kind of dark out. The sun hasn't quite broken yet, and I'm driving forward, and there are some houses, but they're very few and far between. And finally my stomach is just I'm glad to be slowing down, but my heart is racing, and I still can't take it. I stop the truck in front of this house, which is fairly far recessed back. They have a sort of gravel driveway. And I get out of the truck, and I'm just shaking so badly. I'm what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Oh, my God. And then I realized, oh, my God, I'm totally going to shit my pants. So I don't know what to do. I feel my stomach gurgling, and I'm oh my God, I think this could really happen. And I get out in front of the truck, and I realize I really am truly going to poo. And I'm where am I going to poo? So I drop my pants, and I run onto these people's lawn, and I squat down, and I start pooing all over their lawn. And as I'm squatting, I'm certainly thinking, oh my God, I can't get this all over my clothes. So I'm trying to angle my butt so that it's, hanging out behind my jeans as I am squatting, waddling around like a duck, pooing up and down all over their lawn. And as I'm doing this, I realized well, first of all, this had never happened to me before. And so I didn't know that it was possible to poo like over one's pants and not actually get them dirty. Secondly, I didn't realize how easy it was to actually poo in this position. Like, this is really the ideal way to take a dump. It had never occurred to me in my entire course of my adult living because I'd never really pooed outdoors before. But of course, this is why they have holes in the ground in India. Of course, this is why people squat when they poo. It was a revelation. So, at the same time, I'm kind of horrified. The other moment, I'm thinking, wow, it's actually possible to poo while squatting. So, I'm, running around on this lawn. Finally, it stops. And I'm able to sort of semi-collect myself, but I'm still crouching on the ground. And I look up, and my sister approaches me, and she holds out something in her hand, and she says, "Paper towel?" And I take the paper towel, and I'm like, "Thank you." And so I wipe myself. And I'm thinking then, what do I do with this paper towel? So I do, of course, what any rational person would do, which was leave it there. So I get up, I pull up my pants, and I get back into the truck. And as I'm getting into the truck, I just had this vision as the sun was beginning to rise and the light was coming forward. I had this vision of the people in the house getting up that day and looking out the window and saying, what kind of an animal would do that? And then they would see the paper towel and say, oh. At this point, I was like, obviously, I need to get the hell out of here. So we get back in the truck, and my poor sister, I'm like, look, I was like, I can't do it. I'm like, obviously, I cannot handle this. You're going to have to drive the whole way to New York City. I'm very sorry. So we rode in silence. She took over. And again, we realized that we just could not keep up the 55 miles an hour. So we had to drop the speed to around 35 to 40 miles an hour. So this is how our schedule is clearly being blown because I don't know how we're going to make it in time. And I'm starting to kind of freak out. But I keep that all to myself. And we drive for probably 2 more hours. And suddenly we're hungry. So we decide to get off at... It was some sort of neither one of us can really remember what the restaurant was, but it was sort of like a Perkins or a Shoney's, but worse. They didn't have a bread bowl. So we got out, and it was some sort of buffet style thing, and we get our food, and I'm still kind of holding it together pretty well. And we sit down, and as I start to eat, the full force and impact of the fact that I had just evacuated my bowels all over the front lawn of some poor, unfortunate strangers really hit me. And I just cried. I really let loose, and I couldn't stop the tears from flooding that I, this supposedly civilized woman with a decent-sized ego, had just let myself go all over someone's lawn. Now, at that same moment, my sister thought that she had eaten some nuts from some of the food in the buffet. And of course, my sister has a dramatically horrible nut allergy. And so she's saying to me, Karen, I think I might have just eaten some nuts. And I apparently, she says, yelled at her for eating some buffet food that she didn't know the contents of, which I don't recall, but I probably did. In any case, she had to go, then sort of semi-induced barfing so that she could rid herself of the nuts and then finish her lunch so that we could get on our way, because the last thing we needed was an anaphylactic reaction to really derail our already highly flagging trip. So we get back on the road, and I'm still incapable of driving because my panic is still fresh within me. My poor sister, she does make it the whole trip, and I think at this point in time we're probably coming in around 6 or 7 p.m. and clearly we've blown our deadline. We're nearing the Verrazano Bridge, and this is, again, like I said, 2004. So if you recall, 9/11 wasn't that much far before. So there were still all these police on the bridge, and they were stopping trucks as you went through. So of course, We get to the bridge and they're like flagging us down saying we have to stop. So we stop the truck literally in the middle of the bridge. The security guys come over and they begin to open up the back of our truck because they clearly want to inspect it. And just about everything starts to fall out of the truck, including this plant that my sister's been taking care of for like the past 20 years. They raised the back of it maybe about 2 feet. And then as the security guard saw everything that my sister owned, all of her worldly possessions beginning to fall out of the truck, he was like, whoa, okay, fine. He shut the truck and he was like, you girls can go. It's fine. So we luckily got across the bridge without further incident. But then we reached Park Slope, which is our final destination, far too late to do anything with this truck. And then we're thinking to ourselves, is it actually legal to park a truck on the streets of New York? No. So then, what are we going to do with a 15-foot-long truck with all of my sister's worldly possessions? And we're driving around, and we really can't find a parking space. And so, we're starting to kind of freak out. So as we're driving around, we finally get towards Sunset Park and see a car wash. And my sister is like, maybe we can at least just pull into the car wash and ask this guy if he knows. And I was like, oh my God, that's an amazing idea. So let's do that. So we pull into the car wash. And my sister, who's much better at flirting with guys than I am, says that she'll get out and talk to the guy. Now, my poor sister gets out of the truck, and first of all, she's barely able to walk anymore because her leg had been, shaking so badly for most of the trip from holding down the gas pedal that she starts, limping towards this guy. But she put on her game face. She looked really cute because she was wearing this black t-shirt dress with the corporate logo for Oracle across the front of it. So she walks up to this guy who works at the car wash and says, please, can you maybe give us some direction of what we can do with our truck? And he was actually really gracious and said, if you want to, you can leave the truck here overnight in our car wash. We will lock it up for you, but you have to be back by 6 a.m. So we were overwhelmed and thrilled because, just to even get this off our hands for even 7 hours would be a blessing and a miracle. At the end of the day, basically, it all worked out. We were able to meet up with those man with a van guys at the storage unit, and everything was good. So essentially, my sister was able to successfully move to New York. She ended up living in my living room for the next 8 months until she found a great job in a rent-stabilized apartment of her own. And pretty much all I have left now are my memories of my shit show horror, which is really what stands out the most to me. I'm not totally sure what the lesson is here, other than that I was given a window into my own psyche where I thought I was so civilized, but I got off my egotistical throne and discovered that I really am a person who absolutely can shit on someone's lawn.
That was Dump Truck from Karen Kranack. Karen is a user experience design consultant, which means she helps make the things that you use easy and enjoyable to use. I met Karen outside of the storytelling world, but I knew she had at least one good story in her. I'm sure she has others. And she came up to record because she's been making an effort lately to reconnect with her creative side. That includes things like telling this story, as well as taking singing lessons, and she recently joined a choir. Karen can be found in the usual digital places, and she occasionally tweets at Cranbot on Twitter. This has been Modern Stories Mix, episode 14. I'm your host, Julie Threlkeld. By the time you hear this, I will have recorded a couple of nights previously. Let me just make this easier. I'm just going to lie. A couple of nights ago, in the future, I performed at Blaze Allison Kearsley's show, the How I Learned series at Union Hall in Brooklyn, which just turned 7. I did a new story there, which I call A Toothpick Comes Out Clean. And if you missed me there, I'll be performing it again at Talk Therapy Stories at QED in Astoria on Thursday, March 10th. And I'm also just pitching to a lot of other shows because I need to get back out and perform some more because I miss it. I have recorded a number of storytellers this month and last. I have a pipeline of 4 or 5 stories, which is great. It's sort of how I feel like I always feel good when there's enough wine in the house, and that's how I feel. I'm not going to run out of stories, but it also means I have a lot of editing to do. But I'm realizing at this point that long form is where I want things to be for this show. So I'm going to focus on producing stories that are around 20 minutes going forward. So if you have a story that's in that weird place that's too long for most rostered shows and too short for a solo show, why don't you pitch it to me at modernstories.com/mix/pitch. I'd also like to thank some recent calendar funders. Marty McNabb, who produces the prolific Show and Tale series, which I think she has described as being kind of like Antiques Roadshow, but has more of an edge, I think. Tracy Segarra, who recently leapt into storytelling with both feet and won her first Moth Slam, and is now, like all of us, an addict. And I got a second donation from Jude Treater Wolf, who produces the Long Island show Mostly True Things. So thank you to all 3 of you. And just a reminder, if you're listening, if you give $20 or more, your calendar invites, or rather your events, should you have them, will be highlighted for an entire year. And not only that, I will even send you a note when it's time to renew. So donate. Subscribe to the Feedbag, which is an RSS to mailbox thing that's free and will let you know when new stuff goes up on the site, mostly events. Rate this podcast on iTunes. I would really love that. It helps people find it. And tell your friends about it via social media. Help me. As always, thanks for listening, and I will be back in March.